Hi, everybody. Hello, everybody. I am here walking on the beach here at Seacliff, going up to meet one of my friends, Rich Seidler, who is a Vietnam veteran and who is kind enough to share a bit of his story and his experiences from his time in Vietnam. All right, meet Rich. Hi, Rich. How are you doing today?
Fine.
I'm going to hand this to you as soon as I ask you a couple of questions that I am so grateful, and I want to thank you that you will take the time to speak with me today. I truly appreciate your service, and I am honored to hear your story in your own words. Okay, here we go, Richard. My first question that I have to you is, what led you to join or be drafted into the military? And what do you remember about that time?
I grew up in the late 50s, early 60s, and all my uncles had been in World War II. There were a lot of movies about war, and that's what we played as kids, so it was kind of brainwashed into me at a young age that the thing to do was go in the military. And at 18, I was struggling at Cabrillo College and decided I needed to do something more with my life. So at 18, I joined the Marine Corps, and it was an adventure. It was challenging, and it shapes your whole life from that point forward.
Thanks, Rich. I really appreciate it. So, the next question I'm going to ask you right now is, what was the first impression when you arrived in Vietnam?
Everybody will tell you the minute you walk off the plane is the heat and the smells, which are a combination of decomposing foliage and feces, and lots of fires, lots of things burning. So it's the smell and the heat. It's a third world country, so even though it's beautiful, it's a lot of water bison pulling carts and little old ladies chewing beetle juice, beetle nut, and it's a third world country, but beautiful.
All right, thanks, Rich. That's great. A lot of people don't know what it's like when you first enter a foreign country, especially at such a young age. So, can you describe a typical day during your service, what you went through?
Sure. Well, I think everybody's experience is going to be different. Mine was at not a forward artillery base, but an artillery base outside of Da Nang. And so a typical day, everyone has their MOS and their job. And because I could type when I went to high school, I became a clerk. But first of all, every Marine's a rifleman, so you still do your military job, and then you do that during the day. At night, 2 or 3 nights a week, you'd pack claymores and 50 caliber out to an outer perimeter for guard duty that night. There'd be 3 of us, and one's awake, the other 2 sleep, and then you rotate through the night. And the next morning you go back, deliver everything back, go have breakfast, and then go to your day job. And then you usually repeat the same thing that night. You might go 4 nights and then have a couple of nights where you could go watch a movie, have a beer. Some days you would have a patrol around the base, and a few times I had to go out to other parts of our company and go over like wills, sort of with all of the troops there. I would have to sign some paperwork for them, and so mostly it was the same routine. But there were other things. Sometimes we'd have a USO show, so you'd have beer. Some days we'd go to the beach and they'd barbecue steaks and all the beer you could drink. So they were fun times.
Did they have women that came to entertain you? Did you ever see like a Bob Hope show or anything like that?
Bob Hope was there. I tried to go, but there's ranking officers, too many people that know somebody that could get in. So even though I went, I couldn't get in. We did have USO shows, mostly from the Philippines, and they had, rock music, go-go dancers, and it was entertaining.
So I guess we could think of it a little bit like MASH in some respect, the show MASH.
Yeah, it was. And you would ask about kind of a main experience, and it involved a MASH hospital unit. I'd been in a rolled over in the back of a vehicle and into a ditch, and I was suffering from pneumonia before that, so I went into a hospital like a MASH unit for about 4 days, and so that was kind of an experience because you could walk around, and I could walk out to where the helicopters were bringing the wounded in, and then they wheel right past me into the operating room, and you could stand at the operating room and watch them doing the surgery. So it was kind of a rude awakening to see that going on.
Thanks, Rich. This is very interesting, hearing your tales here at the beach at Seacliff. I have a few more questions for you that I hope you can answer. What was the most challenging or defying moment in your experience?
Defining moments, I would say going into the hospital, seeing all the wounded coming in, and realizing that life is precious and don't take it for granted.
Very good, Rich. Thanks, Rich. I have another question for you that, I'm sure brings back some tragic and hard memories. But did you ever find yourself in a precarious situation in combat or snuck up upon or anything like that?
No, I think I got lucky again because I told them I could type. I didn't become a grunt or a machine gunner and luckily I think that kept me out of anything serious. The worst would be mortars, and a few people would get wounded, but for the most part it was a pretty safe environment where I was.
Okay, Bender, Rich Seidler, here is the other question. A lot of people are curious and don't have any idea. How did your experience in Vietnam affect you when you came home from Vietnam?
I think health issues from Agent Orange kind of affected me long term. The VA, after having to take care of us, have been pretty good with providing health care to all Vietnam veterans. If you were in Vietnam, you were presumed to be exposed to Agent Orange. So there's a lot of cancers and diabetes, things going on that are affecting all the veterans. Didn't really answer.
Is there anything else that you can think of that how it affected you when you came home? Were jobs readily available for you and stuff like that?
I had the GI Bill, so I was able to go to college, and I had no problems with people when they found out. I didn't advertise it that I was a Vietnam veteran, but I didn't really have any difficulties with people, and yeah.
What about politically? Did anyone ever come after you because it was quite the trying time with Nixon and all that stuff and protests against Vietnam?
There might have been a few cases, but I was young and felt invincible, and I was in pretty good shape, so I wasn't going to take any bull from anyone.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rich. Okay, Rich, who are the people that you remember most from Vietnam?
Well, interestingly enough, there were two people from Watsonville in my company. One of them I worked with, the other one was in an outer base, so I saw him occasionally. The one I remember most was a young guy. He was Canadian, and we hung out a little bit, got to be friends, and then one day he just wasn't around, and I asked my superior officer what happened to him, and he had died from a mosquito bite, encephalitis. So he was there one day and gone the next, and that just kind of sticks in my mind that he wasn't even a U.S. citizen, and yet he was there participating in that war.
That's heartfelt and must be so hard, and that must be one of the hardest parts of it. Can you tell me what helped you get through something like that?
Oh, well, I think just moving forward and not dwelling on what had happened, but only looking forward ahead, because everyone's counting down the days you have before you go home. It's 13 months, and you starting day 1 and 2 and 3, 30, 40, you've still got a lot of days to go. So when you get down to day 250, 260, then you start getting a little more anxious, because you want to make sure something doesn't happen before it's your time to go home.
Wow. And I'm going to ask you one last question. Okay, Rich. So after going through things like that, what do you wish people today understood about Vietnam veterans, or that war in particular?
I think they need to understand that a lot of the troops that were there didn't want to be there. They were drafted. Some volunteered, some were drafted, but they all did their job, even though it was an unpopular war. And after kind of not even thinking too much about politics, when I went over there after being there, and while I was there, I started to change my thoughts about what we were doing, why we were there. So I think future generations need to just question authority and make sure you feel comfortable with what they're asking you to do.
All right, Rich. I want to thank you so much for taking this time to be with me and others, to just give them a little insight of what war's about. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Rich.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Misty.